Hello everyone. In this video I wanted to talk about how I learned Japanese, and I will give you guys advices to learn and how I did and what is my experience with Japanese. You should know that I went to Japan for 1 year as an exchange student, but it wasn't during this year that I started to learn Japanese. I started to learn Japanese alone in my room and used several methods. I tried several things. From this I learned what is the best method for me. I started from zero, from literally nothing. I didn't take any school class or nothing, so I didn't know anything, and before going to Japan I reached a level, I would say A2 plus B1, and then when I was in Japan I went from A2 B1 to B2 plus C1, so I got the GLPT N2. My teacher said that I wasn't going to have it, but I got it anyway. So really, motivation is everything. Motivation is key. If you really want to learn Japanese, then you will find a way. First of all, I started learning Japanese through animes, dramas, and listening to music. So when you watch animes, you get familiar to the language, you hear some words, you start to learn them. Obviously the grammatic is more difficult to learn. You can't really learn it from animes. You can learn several sentences, but it's hard to learn from animes or dramas. When you pair watching animes and dramas or listening to music with an active learning, which means, for example, learning vocabulary or using methods like Assimil, which is my favorite method to learn a language, I think it's really easier to learn words. For example, when you have only a vocabulary list, then you won't really learn. It's just like words thrown on a paper and it doesn't really have a meaning. But when you listen, for example, to animes and dramas, and then you hear words that you have learned on your vocabulary list, then these words has a real meaning, has a context, you heard it in a peculiar situation. So this word becomes alive, whereas when you only learn on a vocabulary list, you will forget this word really easily. I really began to learn Japanese through animes and dramas and listening to music, so I think it's a really good start. And then if you pair it with an active learning, as I said, so the method Assimil, for example, then I think it will be really easier for you to start learning Japanese. Your level will be better. For me, it's really important that when you learn words, you have to put it in a precise situation. You have to make it become alive. So, for example, you can try writing some sentences, or writing your diary, I don't know, like a sentence a day, with the words that you have learned. So that really helped me to learn Japanese. Also, when we listen to music in Japanese, you take the lyrics, you take the words you don't understand, and then you try to translate, and then when you will listen to this music, you will remember what this word means. So it will be easier for you to not forget this word. I will talk to you more in detail about Assimil and how I used this method to learn Japanese before going to Japan. So I remember that during summer, even during school, I was doing this method where you have like CDs, you can listen to it, and then you have exercises. You can do whatever you want. It's really like intuitive. It's not really grammatic. It's not a grammatical textbook. It's more intuitive, and it gives you situations, also cultural aspects, which is really cool. And that's why I really love it. So, for example, after finishing Assimil, I knew almost every situation by heart. I knew the words, I knew what they meant, I knew what they were going to say, because I've heard it a lot. I was listening to the CD when I was going to school, when I was going back from school, when I was in my room, anytime I was really like into it, and also learn how to pronounce it, try to record myself. So it really helped me a lot before going to Japan. For me, it wasn't an option to go to Japan during 1 year and not know anything about Japanese. It wasn't an option. It was really important to go there, to be able to communicate with people, even if it was like at a really low level. It was really important for me to be able to do that. In Assimil, you have a revision lesson, and before doing this revision lesson, I revised all the lessons before that. So at the end, I did like almost 3 or 4 times every lessons, and it really helped me. You can do whatever you want, however you want, but for me it was the best option and the best method that I have used for many languages. For example, for Korean too, it was really useful, and when I start learning a language, I always use Assimil. You have an advanced level, you can start learning kanjis, because I think that when you learn with katakana and hiragana, you have like a limit that you can't go beyond, because it gives a meaning to the word. When you only learn with hiragana, it's hard to remember, I think, because it's only syllables, and I think a word should be more like an image. For me, it's really easier to remember. For example, also for Korean, I learn hanjas instead of just learning how to say the word, because for me it has a more complete meaning. And also when you see the kanji, like you learn kanjis, then you can know the meaning of other words, which will help you to learn really faster. Learning kanji makes the word more logical. It's really easier to learn Japanese when you learn the kanji with it. Only learning katakana and hiragana, I think it's not enough. Knowing hiragana and katakana, you can start reading mangas with the furigana. Normally in mangas you have the kanjis, and then it's written in hiragana or katakana, and next to the kanjis you have the hiragana and katakana written. So it shows you how to pronounce the word, and so you can take a manga and then to try to read it, even just to practice reading katakana and hiragana. It's really useful. I did that during my year in Japan, and it really helped me. I think it's one of the best ways to practice reading if you are not in the country, because when you're in the country you are surrounded by kanjis and hiragana and katakana, so it's really easy to not forget it. But when you are in your country, it's a good way to learn, and you can find scan on internet, for example. So it's really easy to find, I think, and yes. So my fourth advice is talking to yourself in the language is really useful. When you go take, I don't know, to buy something to drink, then you will say to you in your head, I'm going to buy something in Japanese, for example. It's really nothing, but it really helps you. And when you don't know a word, then go and look for it on internet and try to repeat the sentence until you know it. And try just to make conversation in your head, or with, even if you find someone who speaks Japanese, then that's even better. Just to make conversation, to try to practice daily. When you learn grammatic, for example, try to practice and use it daily so that you don't forget it, and that you know what it does mean and in what context you can use it. So for me that's really important. When I learned something when I was in Japan, the same day I had to use it to remember, because if I just let it like that, I learned it but I don't use it, then it's not useful, and you really have to use it to remember it. That's what I do, and that's what works for me. So I hope it does for you too. And obviously the best advice I can give you is to go to Japan, even if in this situation it's not really easy. I know it, but the best way to go to learn a language anyway. Just going, learning the culture, learning through people, learning I don't know, the music, it's really easier. It's easier and it's more motivating to see that this language is used. So for example, for me, learning a language at school is impossible because it's just trying to practice words and learning vocabulary. It doesn't mean nothing. But when you use it with people, trying to understand the culture, trying to understand what they're saying, trying to understand your environment in general, then you really turn. For me, it was a frustration to not be able to understand 100%. So I turned this frustration into motivation, and that's what helped me a lot to learn Japanese and to try to understand what people are saying, my environment, the culture that surrounds me. And yeah, so for me, doing like an exchange or just going for a vacation and trying to talk to people and trying to practice what you have learned is the best way to learn a language. Also, you can use an app or a website that is called Italki. My brother used it to learn German and Chinese, and it really helped him because you can learn with native speakers, and it's a lot cheaper than a one-to-one class or even a class in general. So it's online, but you can choose your teacher. You can see if people are satisfied with their classes. Also, you can choose how you want to learn. If you want to learn to practice only just conversation, or it's up to you. So that's really great. I started this with Korean, and I really appreciated it. Try to find your way. If you learn through listening, if you learn through conversation, if you learn through reading, I don't know, like just find your way, find the best for you. I hope this video really helped you and motivated you to learn Japanese, to start learning Japanese. If you have time, then try to learn to understand the culture as well, not just learning vocabulary and stuff, because from my point of view it doesn't really help. I hope that my advices will be really helpful, and yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Also, I'm not a native English speaker, so if I made mistakes, deal with it. I don't know, or let me know in the comments so that I can improve. That will be really helpful and really great. And that's it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. If you have recommendations also for videos, for ideas, I don't know, that you want to see, or if you have questions, leave them down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!